Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Quick Chat. I'm your host, Marieo Foster, aka Agent 23, and we are very fortunate today to have Mr. Clay Dickey. Now, Clay is probably well known to every single one of our viewers and listeners here. Clay has been a staple in the softball world all around the country. Doesn't matter the association, doesn't matter what you've done, whether you're at the rec level or at the highest level. This man's name is synonymous with the sport of softball, and we're very fortunate to have him with us today. Now, just as the show indicates, the title Quick Chat, it simply means that we're going to take small bits of conversation with really interesting people, take that opportunity to talk with them, learn more about them, share it with you, the listening audience, so that you have a better idea of what they're doing and possibly be able to follow them further beyond this show. And like always, you'll be able to find these interviews on the website softballtalk.com. And we'll repeat that again at the end of the show so that you can know where to go to find this. And with that being said, Clay, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend?
Blessed to be in this seat right here talking to you. And that intro is a little overwhelming. I never look at it that way, but my dad always told me it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So if that's what you say, then I'm blessed to be here. So
well, thank you, man. And trust me, when I say that, the accolades are well deserved. I've had a front row view of just what you've done over the years, and I've been fortunate enough to partake in some of those activities. So without a doubt, your humbleness goes a long way, but what I speak is the truth. With that being said, can you give us sort of a snapshot of your background and bio, who you are?
As you said, I'm Clay Dickey. I am the CEO of BSC Softball Inc. That's one of the Black American programs in the slow pitch world. I'm also a member of the National Slow Pitch Committee for USSSA. And my areas are the Women's Conference, the Men's Senior Program, and the USSSA Black American Program. And I help oversee the Southeast region for slow pitch softball in USSSA.
Wow, that's a lot of hats to wear and a lot of good stuff. But obviously, with your business acumen, it makes sense you'd be the guy in that seat. So, tell us, how did you get involved in the sport of softball?
I was an IT guy all my life. I did play baseball growing up, and I was working in the IT department in the Florida legislature. And they approached me once about playing in a state employees slow pitch league, and I was like, I didn't know there was such a thing. And so we went out there, and it was one of those situations where anybody that was related to the state employee could play on the team. So I ended up getting my brothers and my sister, and we made up half the team, and we just were destroying people. And so a couple people saw me playing that played tournament ball, and they asked me to play, and that's really how I got started. Now it's a long way between there and where I'm at now, but I'm sure we'll get to that later on. So, but that's how I got started playing slow pitch softball. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you spoke earlier about BSC. And for those that don't know, the BSC is an acronym for the Black Softball Circuit. Could you give our audience an understanding of the history of the BSC softball and what led to its advent?
It's a great question. I get asked that all the time because the truth of the matter, I love playing softball, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to continue in IT and just play softball on the weekend, like everybody else. A lot of people play golf. Softball was my outlet. Well, I was actually playing open ball at a very high level A, which probably translates to C now. You know how back then everybody wanted to play as high as possible. That's kind of the other way around right now. And I was playing against a team that played in the Black American program for USSSA, and they asked me to come play with them, and I went and played my first tournament. It was a world tournament, and I was just blown away by the environment. And right after that, I actually tore my rotator cuff and got hurt, so I couldn't play. But I was really intrigued about that Black American program, so I just started going to the events and started taking pictures. And because of my IT background, I started a message board and a website for Black American softball. And this is before Facebook, and it just blew up. I don't see how some people didn't get fired for being on that website. Back then, chat room could only have 1,200 messages before you had to start another chat. We had to start 5 chats before noon that day. And so people started watching that I didn't know were watching. So the city of Columbus called me one day and was like, hey, can you get one of these tournaments to come to Columbus, Georgia? And I was like, do you have fields? Well, I've never been to Columbus, Georgia. So they send me pictures of the fields, and I'm thinking to myself, why aren't there tournaments there already? The park is beautiful. It's a phenomenal complex. It's the history, had the USA Olympics there. So I was like, sure. I said, what's the cost on them? And she was like they're like 2,000 a field. I was like, well, there's your problem right there. This is a youth sports. That's way too much. So should I tell you what, if you can get a 30-team tournament here, I'll let you have the fields. And I was like, okay. And so I reached out to the two Black American programs at the time, BASA and USSSA, Black American, and BASA, who I'd done a tournament with before, said, we have a tournament that weekend. So I went to USSSA with Gene Williams, God bless his soul. He said, sure. And so we came there and we put 90 teams there the first tournament. And so I was like, wow. And then, so of course, at that time, everybody wants to start putting tournaments there. But she was like, that was great, but can you bring a world tournament here? I was like, whoa, that's a pretty put task to put on me. But I will ask both of the associations. So I asked both of the associations, because they put a world tournament on there. But most organizations, they plan way ahead. And so I told her that they would both be interested, but it'd be 2 years down the road. And she said, well, that's not going to work. And I'm like, okay, you don't have anything going on now. She was like, well, I'm dying of cancer, and I promised the city that I would bring a tournament here before I died. And I was like, whoa, how did I get put in this position? So I said, I'll tell you what, we're going to put a world tournament on here this year. And she was like, well, what association? I said, I'm just going to put it on. Well, the website's called Black Softball Circuit. We're going to put the Black Softball Circuit World Series here. And she was like, you think anybody will come? And I was like, hey, nothing failed but a try. I said, we got 90 teams for a regular tournament. We can try it. So we brought it in, and the first tournament was phenomenal. And before I left there, everyone just kept saying, you need to just start an association. And so the first BSC tournament was a world tournament, and we haven't looked back. And that's how it all started.
Wow. Wow. I mean, what a incredible sort of origin story of how this all began. A lot of emotion involved in that, and your commitment to someone's dying wish. I mean, again, you shouldn't be surprised why you're held in such high regard for things like that, because it's part of your character. When you think of BSC, those who have not had the opportunity to experience it, it is very much like a family reunion. It is a gathering of so many like souls and like spirits that just get to fellowship and compete at a high level, but in an environment that it seems almost festive in the way that everything is run, in the way that from the food to the music to the camaraderie, it's such a great environment. Some folks who don't understand about what we refer to as sort of the specialized softball environments, i.e., the military softball circuit, the police softball circuit, BSC. Some people think of it as an exclusionary thing, and it is certainly not meant to be exclusionary, but more so to highlight and give an opportunity for those specialized communities, for those who may mistake what the BSC means, and that because of its nature and what the restrictive nature is, like any other softball association that is specialized, the firefighter circuit and the like. Could you explain to the audience that it is not an exclusionary thing in its core? It's more inclusionary, but meant to do a certain thing by your vision. Can you share that?
And like you said, it's the family reunion. That is actually our motto. It's like a family reunion every weekend. But as far as exclusionary, as you know, I'm involved with softball all across the country with organizations and different brands and whatnot. One of the things that sets us apart for our tournaments is that when we have a tournament, we put our champion photos of every team, first through third, on the website. We also do an all tournament poster. And I will bet the bank on BSC softball that there is not a more diverse picture every weekend than in BSC softball. That I will take to the bank. You just, if you got time, go look at all different association websites. When they put the World Championship posters out there, no association has a more diverse group of individuals in their photos than BSC. So to say that is exclusionary, regardless of what the rules are, that is the proof is in the pudding. And I look at some of the top players in the game who actually got their start in BSC, the Jeremy Yates to the world, Lewis Rayner, Kristen Dowling, of course, the Enough Says to the world. They got their start in BSC, and that's why you see a lot of them playing. And so many conference players to this day play both the conference and BSC. And they wouldn't be there if they didn't feel at home. And that's one of the things that I preach and enforce, that everybody's inclusive and everyone's going to feel comfortable there. And I think they know that. And that's why we got so many sponsors attach their names to our brand, because they know that we're going to keep it in good hands.
And that's well said. And I think it's worth mentioning too that while the BSC has certain rules as it relates to team rosters, it's worth mentioning that the BSC allows non-African American players to be a part of that circuit in that organization. Whereas if you play police softball or firefighter softball, period, point blank and simple, you have to be an active or retired law enforcement. There is no others. There's nothing that allows anyone outside of that very strict classification to be involved. So that in and of itself demonstrates that it is not really exclusionary to the person who doesn't really understand. So thank you for pointing that out. So we talked about the history of the BSC softball, what led to its advent, the history of the BSC World Series and how it came about. How, in your mind, has the game evolved over the years for BSC?
It's evolved for us in a sense that we've, because we started from scratch. It's amazing to see the growth of the players, the individuals, the personalities. When we first started, we had 4 divisions. We had men's rec, men's comp, women's rec. And now we have 11 divisions at the world. We have the men's 40s, the men's 50s, men's 50 comp, men's 50 rec, 55, 60, women's 50s, women's 35. And that's because we've grown as an organization, and these people have been playing with us for so long, and we don't like for them to not ever have a place to play. And so what we've always done, that's one of the things I think that set us apart was being visionary and not being naive to where the game was going. When we first started BSC, you still had the 2 other associations. You had BASA and USSSA Black America. They still had 3 divisions. They had the rec, super rec, and comp. And we started right out of the gate and said, we're just going to do rec and comp. You're either a rec or you're a comp player. Because I saw where the future was going. Everyone's trying to play down. So it wasn't a sustainable process. And I hear people all the time that, that don't play BSC every weekend say, man, I wish everybody would do that. Just have 2 divisions. You either want to play or you don't, and so what we've been able to do is just try to be forward in our thinking and say, okay, this is where the game is going. So let's get there before we get there, and how to try to navigate ourselves through the water. And our senior program is well, of course, we'll never have the 800 teams at that some of these events have, but we don't have 800 teams, period. But our senior circuit is amazing. As you know, you played in it, and it's continuously to grow. And we nurtured it from when it was 4 or 5 teams. And that's the thing, we invest in it. We don't, and that's another thing that sets us apart. We don't care if there's 2 teams in a division or 40. Everybody gets the same prize package. And that costs us something up front, but in the long run, it builds trust and it builds relationship with teams, players, and sponsors that know when they come to BSC, they're going to get treated a certain way.
I tell you, again, just listening to you talk, and even though I've been around the BSC, it's like, and I know our listeners and our viewers are really probably like me, just enthralled in this conversation, in that you're giving a window into what it really takes. Most people pack a bag and come play softball and they have no idea about the moving parts, the things it takes, the relationships that are necessary to be built, whether it be for the parks, whether it be for the vendors or the merchandise, the insurance, any and all things that have to go into it, the equipment that comes in. You're trying to make sure that you keep a clean environment through the bat testing process or whatever it may be. These folks just show up and play and they have no idea what it takes. And I'm so glad that they're getting an opportunity to really just get a peek inside just how much you put into this, the passion into it, and why they enjoy themselves on such a high level year in and year out, from tournament to tournament, leading up to the grandest of them all being the Worlds. So what should people expect for the future of BSC as you see it, whether it be long-term, short-term, or even further out? What should folks kind of look at and expect to see transitionally?
Well, before I go on, I want to say this. I don't want people to think that I got this magic wand and I wave this thing and everything just falls into place for BSC. I have the most amazing staff who goes up far and beyond the call of duty to make sure that the vision that I laid out is followed and implemented. And none of them had tournament experience before, except one, because the vision I had laid out, I didn't need somebody to change the part. I needed someone to implement because of the fundamental growth that we were pursuing. But along those lines, my earliest thought and my earliest realization was I'm a numbers guy. Just being in IT, that's just the way it goes. And one of the things I noticed early on and realized early on is that 95% of the teams that come to a tournament are going to go home. I don't want to use the term losers, but going to go home not winning. Okay. And 75% of those 95% teams that didn't win will never win. How do I keep getting them to come back to this tournament? And that's where I had to give them something that they felt that they were getting out of. And that is what the environment is. And the environment that we have created keeps everybody coming back. So what we've done is, okay, the game is itself. I can't recruit talent. The teams do that. I can't recruit more parks, more fields, because we have all of that stuff in place. How do we keep the game growing? Because there was a period now, the slow pitch is bounced back now. But you remember a few years back, for 3 or 4 years, everybody was losing teams. Where during that time, BSC was gaining teams. And I think that was due to the fact that we created an environment that people realized that they won regardless. They won in life. They won new friendships. And another thing that we have is we're part of the only slow pitch association that brings more fans than players, as you know that. It's true, like a family reunion every weekend. So when we go forward and to sustain this growth, I don't know what we'll do, but one thing I'll know is that we will meet that spectrum when we get there, because I am always looking forward to the next great thing. Whether that's in the softball arena or the technology arena, I just try to think outside the box. What can we do that's going to set BSC apart year after year? And like I say, it may not even be softball. It could be, like I was one of the first guys to interject TikTok into softball. I'm a technology guy, so technology is definitely going to be the key. And with all of these new type TVs, stations that are now internet-based popping up, that's the next goal, to get it on TV. Of course, you got, because of if games and stuff like that, you got to find that format. But even if it's just a highlighted game here or there, I know you can go back and watch games on live stream and record it. But I actually want a TV network to pick up some of these games. And we got some stuff working, and I got to know some friends in some good places. It may not be this year, but just like Janice Davis in Columbus, that's her vision. That's my vision for BSC.
And I tell you, it's so exciting to hear, Clay. And when I think about what, some of the things that you've shared thus far in the conversation, what's really awesome to see for me from a personal perspective is to be around and see sort of the evolution of what you're creating. in the way you do it, right? It's never a wholesale change. You bring people along incrementally because you understand the nature of the human nature and how change is not always easy for people, even if the change is simple. Things like not having duplicate jersey numbers, moving to having a uniformed appearance. These are all things that you've been forward thinking in the process because, again, you can go out to a league somewhere and just kind of wear whatever you want to wear. But as you said, when you start talking about a brand image and brand professionalism, you're at the forefront of ensuring that as this thing continues to grow and gain more attention and traction and where you want it to be, you understand that the brand's appearance is all part of that. And that's a testament to your forward thinking and what you're doing. And it's exciting to see and be a part of as well. Now, you've given a lot to us and we really appreciate that. And as we kind of wrap this up, the last sort of question I want to ask you before you kind of share with people how they can follow you and follow the BSC or just in general support what you're doing. Why do you think it's so difficult for all these other associations that you've seen, whether you've been a part of them, observed them, helped run some of them? Why is it that they can't seem to create the same sort of festive atmosphere that the BSC, if you talk to anyone from the conference all the way down to E-level and church ball, if they've been to a BSC environment or BSC event, they know what it's like. And they all uniformly talk about how much fun they have, especially when you draw, like you said, fans, because there's something about being between those lines on the diamond when there's a bunch of people in the stands all the time. It doesn't matter what game you're playing. It's such an awesome feeling. Why do you think all these other associations just don't seem to be able to have that unless it's like some sort of a marquee game? The environments at those other associations. What do you think is the reason it's so difficult to duplicate?
Well, that question is it's hard to answer simply because of the fact that my belief, and it's held true from my career, is that people don't really follow associations; they follow people. So it's up to the individual. There's no way USSSA can tell the hundreds of tournament directors that you got to do this, you got to do that, and create this environment. Because at the end of the day, it's still a business, and it costs to do what we do. It's not cheap to do the things that we do. So again, it takes individuals to make that commitment to do it. And I don't know, I wouldn't put that on the association. I would put that on the individual tournament directors for the different associations. That's why most of the BSC tournaments that we have are run by BSC staff, because there's a certain standard that we have and that they know it has to be implemented. We have a few people that's non-staff to put them on, but they know going in, it's got to be this way. But we also, because of logistics, that have to allow them to do that. So every single BSC tournament doesn't have 100 teams. We have a couple of 20, 30 teams that obviously can't duplicate that environment, but we have to do that for logistical reasons. But what you see on the internet and Facebook, those tournaments are run by staff, and there's a strong commitment to do that. And there are some, I've never been, but there's some tournaments that are pretty close to that, like the Trip Roth, I've heard, is a real festive atmosphere that Richie Soley runs over in Louisiana. But again, it comes down to investing in your event from the tournament director. And one of the things that I've known in my 15 years of running BSC is the biggest mistakes that I see tournament directors make is that so many of them treat every single event as if that is the last tournament they're ever going to make money. And when they do that, they cut corners that they shouldn't cut, and people remember that. And that is a death knell in the tournament business. I mean, there may be years. I have a good friend who runs some great tournaments. He had 20 tournaments in 2020, and 16 of them got rained out. That's tough. You know what I'm saying? And, just by the grace of God, I've been blessed in 15 years to maybe have 2 tournaments totally rained out and maybe 3 or 4 that we couldn't end. And that's just God's grace. But everything else, it just comes down to the individual. I wouldn't put it on the association. It comes down to the individual tournament director making that commitment to say, this is the environment that I'm going to put on. Is going to make people come back every single year.
Yeah, I tell you, you remind me of I call it the Chick-fil-A format, right? It doesn't matter where you go. Every Chick-fil-A around the country, it seems like they all are reading from the same book. The way they operate, it's the same everywhere. You kind of remind me of that mentality. Like it starts with the expectation you have, and if it's going to have your stamp on it, then it's going to be the way you expect it, no matter where it's held. So that's great. Well, Clay, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing just this snapshot of information for our viewers and our listeners to really get an understanding of who you are, what you've created, your vision for it, and just exactly the sort of person you are. If anybody wants to follow you and what you're doing, can you let us know how can they catch up to you, follow the things that you're doing in the softball world or otherwise? Give us a plug right now for how we can do that.
Want to follow Black Softball Circuit. Our website is bscsoftball.com. On Facebook, it's Black Softball Circuit. Our message board, sort of our community, is called Circuit Talk on Facebook. Our Instagram is official_BSC Softball _Inc. And our TikTok is BSC Softball Inc. And we are very active in all of those communities everywhere. And I really appreciate the follows. I mean, we're as far as numbers are concerned, I think only USSSA has more followers than us, and we're not a fifth of the size of some of the other associations. And it's like I tell people all the time, like Craigslist is one of the ugliest websites in America. But the reason people go there all the time because there's new content every day. Well, that's what I tell my staff. We got to put new content out there every single day. And to go back on the analogy that you talked about at Chick-fil-A, I actually did a TikTok on that once when everyone was talking about the chicken sandwich at Popeyes and how good it was. During the heyday of that, I pulled up to a Chick-fil-A and the line was still wrapped around the building. And I told them, I said, look, it's not about the chicken, it's about the service. And that is why everyone keeps coming back. It's about the service. And that's what we're about. We are a service-oriented association, and we can continue to do that. But I got to give a shout out to you guys over at the Easton Rawlings brand. Brett has been with BSC from almost the very beginning. He's actually come and played. And obviously with Coop over there on both sides, BSC and USSSA, they have really been supportive of what I've done and believed in what I've done, and I can't thank them enough for that. And and obviously you supporting me on the BSC side and the USSSA Open side. I mean, they couldn't have picked a better ambassador for the sport than you. You've been doing it, your service, military, and police, and all that stuff, or whatever. You are the perfect ambassador for this. And man, I just appreciate the opportunity. And anytime y'all need anything from me, just please let me know.
Well, thank you so much, Clay. I really do appreciate you and your time and your kind words as well. And for our listeners and our viewers, I'm sure that, again, they are going to be giving you a follow on all those social media platforms. We'll plug all that information in as well so everyone can know how to get to them. I thank you again. And again, for all of our listeners and our viewers, softballtalk.com is the website where you'll be able to catch these interviews and others that we have, and the quick chat show here with myself, Marieo Foster, aka Agent 23. Again, we thank Clay for his time and for just what he does in the sport of softball and the world in general. A great guy, great human being. Everybody, until next show, next time,